association with Box Road. Delighted to be joined by Eddie Hearn in the Caribe Royale. Have I said that right?
And well done for making the trip. Smart thinking, you. I saw you in the lobby last night. You said, I've got a feeling something big might be going down this week. And it paid off. Congratulations.
Yep, I did hear a rumour and it's come off. We're going to come to that. CONOR BENN making his comeback, huge news. Just want to quickly pick up on, because a lot of people are wondering why we're in Florida, Orlando, random location. You explain.
Yeah, I think, we know that Richardson Hitchens is not yet a guy who's going to draw 5, 6, 7,000. There's been a lot of shows in Orlando recently at this resort. It's kind of like, as you know, being here, it's a huge resort with all the facilities on site, and this particular venue has hosted a number of events now. We wanted to try something different. We came to Orlando, they made us an offer to bring the fight here. A couple of thousand, really nice venue, and a great card as well. I think that Richardson Hitchens against Zepeda is a fantastic fight in its own right. Jessica McCaskill against Sandy Ryan for the Unified World Championship, Ammo Williams against Steve Rolls, and now CONOR BENN as well. So first time in Orlando. We've previously been in Miami, in Florida, a few years ago now. Jake Paul was against Anderson Gibb that night, and Demetrius Andre defending his titles as well. So pleased to be here.
He keeps saying you're a global promoter and you keep backing that up as well, Eddie. I just want to quickly touch on, before we get to this weekend's show, last week you saw obviously Diego Arua, Sabrina Perez's partner, unfortunately passed away during the show last week, I think it was. Just a quick reflection on that, and obviously seeing something like that right in front of you must have been a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah, there's about 20 seconds left in the final round. I was sitting sort of middle end of the row, and he was, 10 yards, if that, 6 foot, 8 foot from me, and literally he just passed out there, right in front of us. And at that stage your immediate reaction is he's fainted. It was very hot in the venue, obviously we're in Mexico, and then the medics were on him straight away. And it was only really probably, a minute or so after the final bell that we realised how sick he was. And he, received the defibrillator in front of us. And yeah, I don't know at what point he lost his life, but it was, the feeling was that it was at ringside rather than at the hospital, and they got him on the stretcher and they administered everything they needed to do, but unfortunately he passed away. And I think at that point we didn't know too much about Diego Arua. People were saying it was Sabrina Perez's husband, a father, a friend or brother or whatever. It was only really when you start finding out that obviously it's her husband, manager, and for her to finish that fight, obviously get beaten in the fight, probably the most heartbreaking pictures that I will remember, not just seeing him on the floor, is her on the apron looking down at him and then rushing with him with her gloves on to the hospital. It was a horrible thing to see, and it's not really, sometimes people get injured in boxing, and sometimes you see terrible things unfold, but this was just more of a life thing, where obviously these two people that have shared that journey together, for her to see her husband pass away after the fight in the corner, it was heartbreaking. And I think, looking back at the broadcast, I hear things like, I don't know a lot about Sabrina Perez, and I met Diego Arua at the press conference, lovely guy, was so excited about the fight. I just think that in boxing, amongst all the politics and the networks and the drug testing and all this kind of stuff, we are one big family, So when something like that happens, it upsets everybody. And I think that looking back at the broadcast, and particularly looking at and hearing about the work that Diego did and Sabrina, they recently opened their own gym in Buenos Aires, in their area, and it was designed to help kids off the streets, and obviously for her to train and stuff like that. And looking back at social media, you could see what that place meant to them. It was like their home, like their achievement. I think when she opened it, I saw stuff like, we've done it. we've done it. And I think it's really important that we continue that legacy. And I spoke to Maurizio Suleiman about that as well, and I think he'll be on board to make sure that that lives on. But you can only imagine the grief that Sabrina is going through now, and we wish her all the strength in the world.
Definitely. So it rests in peace. And what you said there, I picked up when you said when somebody dies or something happens tragic in the boxing community, people do gather around. I experienced that firsthand. So you weren't just saying that does happen. So I just wanted to put that out there. Huge news, CONOR BENN coming back. Just tell me, when did you float with this idea? I know it was kind of flirted with a few weeks ago, but when was it 100% happening? I know you guys have kept it under a lid for a few weeks now.
Yeah, so probably about 2 weeks ago. There was a lot of talk about him fighting September 23rd, September 30th. Conor wasn't really that bothered about fighting. Like he feels like he's ready to fight EUBANK or Brook or whoever now. But Tony said, look, you've been out of the ring for 18 months. I would really like you to fight, go through the process, etc., etc. So probably about 2 weeks ago, we thought, I think we should do this. Probably about 10 days ago, we made the decision to do it. There was a lot, there was quite a stringent process for everybody to be comfortable with the situation. And that is across the ABC, which is effectively the governing commission of American boxing, the Texas Athletic State Commission, where CONOR BENN is licensed, and the Florida State Athletic Commission, where the fight is. So to take you through that process, about 10 days ago, maybe a little bit less, we spoke to the Texas Commission and we spoke to the Florida Commission, and we said we would like CONOR BENN to fight on this card. The Texas Athletic State Commission said, as we understand it, CONOR BENN is suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control and by Ukad. We confirmed to them he's not. He's been cleared and that suspension has been lifted. Florida said the same, and the ABC said the same. Everybody said if he's not suspended and if he's cleared like you say he is, then we would have no issue with him fighting. The ABC then conducted their own investigation. They spoke to the British Boxing Board of Control as well, who confirmed he is not suspended, that suspension is lifted, and he is clear to fight around the world. Once they did that, the ABC were happy, Texas were happy, Florida wanted to get a copy of his recent VADA test, of which there's been multiple in the last 12 weeks that has been conducted, and another one, they wanted an instant one, which was about 10 days ago, which is we got the results back for. It had to be through a specific laboratory to be rushed through. Once they received that clearance, they were happy to sanction it. So I've seen a lot of stuff today. We were talking about it on the way down here, and to be honest with you now, I'm very comfortable with our position. I see stuff from Dan Raphael and people like that. I don't know what you're expecting CONOR BENN to do. He's been through 2 processes, and this whole cleared thing, I don't understand how more cleared you can be when your suspension has been lifted and you are clear. Do you understand? Once the suspension is lifted, you are clear to box. Okay? So we keep hearing about this appeal, which has not materialised. We keep hearing about the dates that come. We have no dates. There is absolutely no guidance as to when an appeal may be, or if that appeal will happen. But right now, whatever way you want to look at it, he is clear to box.
Has an appeal gone into your knowledge?
No, we've been told, we've been notified that it will be happening. We've had no correspondence, as I understand. There's no date of an appeal. Could be December, could be next year. CONOR BENN is clear to box. And, ultimately, all these promoters that come out and say, this is a disgrace. You got representatives of Boxer, or people working on behalf of Boxer and Sky Sports, that are approaching Chris EUBANK Jr. to try and make the CONOR BENN fight round the back, right? It's a world full of hypocrisy. And at the end of the day, there's no more to do other than fight. 18 months out of the ring, cleared to fight by everybody. And this wasn't, I saw something else, commission hopping. This isn't commission hopping. This is going through the ABC, Texas, Florida, and the British Boxing Board of Control. Because without that clearance from the British Boxing Board of Control, he wouldn't have been allowed to fight, because the ABC would say, we will not let any fighter fight that is not cleared by another commission. Okay, so, you know, right.
So we were just on the bit where you said, I was going to ask you, Dan Rafael said that the Florida Commission are very weak. So based on that, could you get Conor to fight in any state in the US, or is it just to Florida at the moment?
No, any state. I mean, ultimately, to be honest with you, Florida really weren't that weak. Florida said, we cannot allow Conor Benn to fight unless he's cleared by the ABC, and we also want to see recent drug testing, and we want him tested again before we allow him to fight. So, you know, when Dan Rafael talks about the Florida Commission, it's actually irrelevant. The process has been the ABC, which is the governing body of American boxing, the Texas Athletic State Commission, and Florida. The ABC were only happy to clear him to fight once they'd spoken to the British Boxing Board of Control and done their own investigation that he is actually cleared and his suspension's been lifted. So, you know, as you just heard me on an interview there with TalkSport, I don't want to say fuck everybody, but fuck everybody, because it's time. He's cleared to fight. Again, we hear about this appeal. We've got no dates. What do you want him to do? Just sit there and, you know, wilt away and train every day and leave himself in financial ruin and, like, you know, no. He's allowed to fight. And guess what? He's fighting on Saturday night.
You touched on it there that you said boxer representatives are trying to make the EUBANK Junior fight on Sky. What's actually happened? Is that just rumours, or someone actually made an offer?
It's not rumours, because we sent them letters today. You know, there's people who are working on behalf of Boxer, who therefore are working on behalf of Sky, to approach Chris EUBANK Jr. to try and make the fight. They've reached out to friends of CONOR BENN, and these are the same people that will sit in interviews with you and say, it's disgusting that CONOR Benn's fighting. How fucking disgusting is it when you're trying to make the biggest fight out there for December? So it's full of hypocrisy, but we got to do what we believe is right. And the fact is, if he's clear to fight, he should fight, and he is fighting. So, you know, and I don't blame people. You don't have to be over the moon about it. You don't have to like Conor Benn, but it's happening, and he's got the right to fight, and that's what he'll do on Saturday.
Chris EUBANK Jr.'s last two fights have been on Sky Sports pay-per-view. If they put together some sort of offer and they said to you to come and fight on Sky, would that potentially bring more eyes to the event, and would you be interested in that?
Chris EUBANK Jr. is not under contract to Sky. He's a free broadcast agent. He's promotionally with Wasserman Boxing and Callis Sowland. Conor Benn has over a year left on his contract with us. He's got multiple fights left. He's with DAZN. We want that fight to happen on DAZN, and you know we'll be making Chris EUBANK Jr. an offer following this fight to make that happen.
Good stuff. And just moving on, one thing I want to ask you is we've seen a lot of stuff online come up this week about, you know, Ulysses Sokolowski, who's recently been suspended. People are running the narrative that if you're not famous, if you're not a big name in boxing like Sokolowski, Tete, Liam Cameron, who's coming back recently as well, you get big bans, and then if you're a big name, you've got money behind you, you can argue it and get out of it. Your response to them people that are putting that out there?
I think some of it, I don't think get out of it, but I think certainly have representation. I mean, I think some of these people, like a Tete, would not have the resources to go through a process and actually look into scientific evidence and stuff like that. I had a really interesting conversation with a member of Team GB recently who tells me that we need to start educating fighters better about not just supplements they're taking, but how they're ingesting the protein shakes, how they're doing this, what they're having in the gyms, what they're doing that, because he actually believes, and I shouldn't even comment on Robert Helenius because, you know, I just get myself, I don't think Robert Helenius took performance-enhancing drugs. I know him, but I don't know him well enough, but I'm just giving you my gut feeling. And I think there are a lot of fighters that will test positive, and I'm not just talking about ones that have, I'm talking about ones that will do coming up. So if you're a fighter and you're watching this, please be careful. Please understand what you can, what you can't take. Download the ban list. Look at everything you ingest. Use products that are with Informed Sport. You understand? Like, you can't afford to go to your local strength and conditioning gym and ask some bloke to make you up a protein shake out of a blender that you have no idea what's been in. And people will watch it, oh, he's mate. Trust me, it's a real thing. And this is coming from the highest heights of people saying you're going to get more and more people testing positive if they're not careful. So one thing we've got to do is we've got to invest in testing, but we've also got to invest in education for fighters. Some fighters, clear cheating, right? Some fighters, unlucky, not cheating. But you don't get the break, do you? Like, you imagine, as we fully believe, that Conor Benn is 100% innocent. Do you think it's fair what he's had to go through? But the responsibility is on the athlete. You know what I'm saying? Even if you've gone to a restaurant and you've had some food and it's contaminated. In the world that we live in the process we live in, with strict liability, tough shit. I don't necessarily think that's fair, but that's how we've got to educate the athlete to make sure that they are careful. When you look at the higher end people, and you go back to what you said about resources, the higher end people will have their food prepared for them and everything almost checked to a T. You look at a fighter like Anthony Joshua, right, who has had more testing than any boxer in the history of the sport, right? He has people working for him that literally, like, everything that he puts inside his body, he knows where it's come from. Now, he'll still eat out, and it scares the life out of me because you just don't know in this world, you know? But yeah, we have to work on the education as well as the testing.
The last thing on all this drug testing side of things, another thing that's being put out is that people are suggesting that there's fighters living out silent bans that aren't being put out there because you kind of got a silence policy. Mm-hmm. Any truth in that? And also, if you did have a fighter doing that, would you obviously let it go on that way?
So, firstly on that, one of the problems, the bigger problems with Ukad is this completely strict confidentiality during that process. What I will tell you, because I've seen some, like, you know, I probably couldn't tell you if I knew that a fighter was under a ban or whatever. I would recommend, and this has never happened to me regarding Ukad and in my whole career. And one thing I see on Twitter a lot is Craig Richards and Felix Cash. Oh yeah, they haven't boxed for a while. They might be under a ban. Absolute bullshit, right? But what I would say to you is, and I don't mind putting this on record, if I had a fighter that had received a ban from Ukad and it was confidential, I would tell that fighter to make their own statement, because you're allowed to do that as the fighter, or I would no longer work with him. And I've never in my entire career had a fighter who has a ban from Ukad that I haven't told anyone about or don't know. In fact, I've never had a fighter, just trying to get it right, yeah, that has been banned by Ukad in my whole career. So, and I don't have any fighter currently in my stable that is under any ban from Ukad.
Interesting thoughts, Eddie. Appreciate your time. We'll talk about the show tomorrow because you've got the press conference and there's a big queue behind me. So thank you for speaking to me. Thanks a lot. Thank you.